Dang, that filled up, and I just feel so much more nervous now. How's everybody doing? You guys having a good day?
Yeah. What about you?
I'm doing all right, yeah. Yeah.
Sophia, are you? Okay. We're live streaming on Instagram. All right. And Mauro's channel. So, all right. Hi, everyone. My name's Kate Holohan. I'm the Curator of Education here at the Syracuse University Art Museum. Welcome to tonight's conversation between Mauro C. Martinez, our art wall artist for 2024-2025, and Sam Santiago, who is a PhD student in English here at SU. So we'll have a great conversation between them tonight. At the end of the conversation, we'll have 15 to 20 minutes or so for questions. And then following the conversation, we'll have a reception out in the Schaefer Galleria. I'm going to hand it over to Melissa Yuen, our curator, in a minute, but I do want to acknowledge with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, upon whose lands the museum and the university stand. And I think I will hand it over now to Melissa Yuen, the museum's curator, who brought Mauro here. Oh, we have to share mics.
Thank you, Kate. I'd like to echo her thanks, and I want to again welcome you all here this afternoon for this conversation titled Gaming, Social Life, and Play, a dialogue between Mauro Martinez and Sam Santiago. This conversation is one of the highlights of the museum's year-long exhibition titled LANscapes, which is part of our Art Wall project and has been made possible in part by the WEGI Foundation. In its fourth iteration, the museum's Art Wall project is dedicated to site-specific works made by emerging and mid-career contemporary artists, all meant to inspire interdisciplinary conversations. The ideas we have explored to date include narratives, poetry, and diasporic communities with Ivan Ford's exhibition that kicked off the project in 2020 to 2021. Memory, foodways, and agriculture as seen in the Asian American kitchen with Stephanie H. Shee's ceramic bags of rice in 21-22, and most recently, American histories and how they are told and shared through monuments with Nona Faustein's silk screens last year. This year, with Mauro's paintings and sculpture, we are thinking about spaces of video gaming, and more specifically, how technologies have reshaped how gamers interact with each other. As the exhibition title, LANscapes, or LANscapes, upon local area networks and landscapes, the exhibition title suggests how the internet, and really how the internet is delivered to our homes, are crucial for the shift in the gaming landscape. Furthermore, this exhibition offers the opportunity for us to consider the internet as an actual thing, as infrastructure, and not simply as this invisible web that our devices connect to automatically. Some of these ideas are expanded upon in the teaching guide developed by Sam Santiago in a summer internship made possible by Syracuse University's graduate school. The teaching guide, titled Play, Electronics, and Social Connections, is available on the museum's website, museum.syr.edu. Now to turn our attention to tonight's program, which is generously co-sponsored by Syracuse University's Humanities Center. I am delighted to introduce our two speakers this evening. Mauro Martinez is a Mexican-American visual artist who lives and works in San Antonio, Texas. He graduated from Pasadena's Art Center College of Design in 2010 and has since developed a practice that focuses on documenting and archiving online culture and the intricacies of the contemporary human condition. In other words, as he describes it, he is a painter of the internet. His practice is humorous, full of metaphor and irony, while simultaneously critical of our connection to online imagery and the way that we live our online existence. In addition to his current solo here at SU Art, he's had solo exhibitions at Yuen London and Brownie Project in Shanghai. His works are held in museum collections, including the Perez Art Museum in Miami, the Crocker Museum in Sacramento, and here at the Syracuse University Art Museum. Mauro will be in conversation with Sam Santiago, a PhD student in English here at SU. Sam studies visual rhetoric in science fiction, exploring large bodies of fiction as transmedial networks. Currently, he is writing a dissertation focused upon how cyberpunk video games construct and deconstruct the concept of personhood within times of socioeconomic crisis. He often studies texts prominent within gaming popular culture and packing digital play as a transformative experience wherein real and digital identities converge, and analyzing gaming as a politically charged activity of enormous consequence regarding the formation of popular ideology through entertainment and media. So I'm going to hand this mic to Sam because we are being influencers right now. And with that, take it away, Sam and Mauro.
All right. Figure out where to put this. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. Mauro, if you want to start us off with like a general introduction to your work and its history.
Sure, yeah. Well, how's everybody doing? Doing all right? I figured I would start maybe with like a brief brief personal history of how I got into painting and then just the evolution of the ideas. I started painting when I first started attending Art Center College of Design. I got into that school. Prior to that, I had a pretty bad heroin problem, and I mentioned that not really as like a bid for sympathy or anything, but because I want people to maybe take heart in the idea that a redemptive arc is always possible, no matter kind of how deep down a shitty path you're going, and it's definitely true. The experience that I had there was I went to a rehab facility, and an aunt of mine gave me a sketchbook. I was there for a detox, and during the month that I was there, I filled the sketchbook and I sent it into the school, and I got in on that sketchbook. And I think just the personal level of just everything I was pouring in there, such a difficult time in my life, and I think I was just the most brutally honest about myself and the experiences, and I think that was a big reason that I got into the school. I got in for illustration initially, but when I was there, I discovered painting, and that sort of radically changed the course of my own personal history. When I was working primarily in illustration, a lot of the work was just sort of about myself and the things that I was dealing with. When I got to Art Center and I discovered painting, my work became much more about the world around me, and I started to kind of focus less on myself and focus more on just, everything else that was happening around me, because I think before I was in a place where I could really only worry about myself, and then sort of maybe graduating to a place where I could appreciate the world for what it was and all of its complexity and all of that. So I started painting at Art Center, and when I got out, one of the first bodies of work that I made was paintings of medical images of people from medical textbooks. My mom's a nurse, and she's, where are you, Mom? She's back there. Mom's back there. My mom's a nurse, and so when I was a kid, one of the earliest memories I have of just like images in general is flipping through her like Mosby's medical textbook. And I just remember kind of seeing these people, they had like the kind of black bar over the eyes, and their names are kind of removed and they're sort of replaced with this medical condition. And I think for me, there was, it seemed like I was, for the first time, looking at something that felt like symptoms of modernity. There was kind of like dehumanization and depersonalization and things like that. And then I think as my work grew, I became, again, just so much more interested in people, and I made my Instagram account, I think is December of 2012 when I made my Instagram account. And through there, over the course of time, I discovered memes and cursed images. And when I started painting that, it was sort of like a similar narrative where the medical images kind of defied traditional sort of like storytelling narratives where there was no who, what, where, why, and how. It was just mostly, it was sort of a what, a condition. And then one of the things that I found very interesting about cursed images was that they completely lacked all sort of context. And that became a sort of very powerful thing for me too, because oil painting is all about context, it's all about narrative, and I thought it would be really interesting to kind of combine these two sort of opposed modes of image making and just basically see what happened. And from there, I was focusing on just kind of like the structure of memes and these kind of cursed images. And then again, I think I doubled down and became interested in people even more so. And so I shifted from memes to gaming, and more specifically like gamers. And I became interested in like gamers and meme makers and the people that were behind the screens and making these things. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm exploring the world of gamers and meme makers and the terminally online and all of those kind of different conditions that we encounter on the internet. And so that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah. So then to start getting into our lovely paintings here on the art wall, I'm really interested in this matter of taking these kind of ethereal, often seen as like throwaway images from the internet, and you're rendering them as oil paintings, which have such strong traditional ties in like the history of Western art to paintings of important events, paintings of important people, aristocrats, and we have clearly something very different going on with the two paintings behind us right now. So I'm wondering if you can just speak a bit more to your relationship with oil painting and your motives for sticking to this form for these things.
Yeah, I mean, when I started oil painting at Art Center, obviously there's a lot of prestige around it, and getting there and sort of working with it, I'm like, dude, I'm not like this prestigious guy. Like, I was like a drug addict. Like, it's a few years before that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have any business like putting on airs. And so that kind of became a sort of angle for me. And yeah, can you repeat the question again? I'm just like, I'm a little bit nervous, kind of getting lost in my train of thought. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no. So your motives for working in oil painting for a while now, right? And also like the relationship that you have with oil painting, like how has it kind of evolved as you've continued to work in it, from subject to subject?
Yeah, I think again, it's so much about like that contrast of taking something that's very prestigious and working in a subject matter that is very ephemeral, very fleeting. And I think ultimately the goal is like, you'll see things like, there's somebody who makes like, let's say street art or something, and it's like, well, you put it in a gallery, now it's like elevated, or it's like they do it in oil painting, it's like elevated. And it's like, I think for me, one of the goals was like the opposite of that, like how can you like de-elevate like oil painting, and bring it down to kind of like a more like, I don't know, maybe relatable, less kind of, I don't know, I guess the word is kind of escaping me, but like snooty, I guess would be maybe like the obvious term. But that was kind of a major angle for me, was kind of doing the opposite of like trying to elevate subject matter, but rather like bring down like the medium itself.
Yeah, I love
the subject matter.
I love that, the idea of taking this like highly venerated thing and kind of bringing it down to a different level, and not as like a negative bringing down, right, as a kind of like productive change.
Yeah, like just kind of making it more like relatable, I guess, to some degree. Yeah, because so I mean, even just the subject matter, replicating a meme is. It's almost like infuriating to some people, because it's like because I think the assumption is that I'm trying to elevate the meme when it's like it belongs to the people, but it's like, no, I want to like make oil painting belong to the people and make it meet, and just demonstrate that it can sort of meet any subject matter where it's at. It doesn't have to elevate a thing in order for it to be worthy of being a painting. Yeah. The world itself is already worthy of being painted as it is, I think.
So the way that you're talking about this kind of fits into something that I've been wanting to ask you about. And I, in game studies, am working with these ideas of play all the time. And like in that field, you just start to see the idea of play in everything. And art is really one of those. A really rough definition of play can be like you have a set of rules, and play is breaking those rules a little bit. What kind of movement do you have in there? And clearly there's some like rule breaking with like conventional artwork. Do you like see your work as like play? Do you see the kind of experimentation that you do from that lens ever, especially in regard to these as like gaming subjects?
Weird, because there's like, I feel like the practice has like two compartments. It's like the serious work, and then it's like the play, you know? But one is like a funnel to the other. It's like when I was painting like medical images, and I remember I saw a meme and I was like, dude, what if I like just painted that, you know? And then I tried it, and then I sort of put it out there, and I kind of got this sort of response, and I think in that way that kind of cued me too that a lot of my work has this kind of diagnostic function where like you put it out, and then the response kind of gives you the social temperature, it gives you an idea of what the social temperature is. And so, you know, there was like a mix of like, oh, that's really cool, very novel, and like, oh, that's amazingly stupid. And so, you know, it was enough of, I think, contrast to where I started to notice it a bit more, and then started painting memes. And then after that, it was, you know, the gaming setups. I was just like on Reddit, you know, rate my setup on Reddit. And that was like the title of one of the shows that I had just about gaming setups. And so I painted one of those, and, you know, I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed also painting LED lights, you know, is just such a fun, like, sort of thing that's, you know, painting, obviously, like, with painting, all you're doing is painting light, but LEDs kind of seem like something that's very specific to right now, you know, and, yeah, so it's just kind of been a process of, like, finding those things in play and then focusing on them a little bit more seriously, and then leaving another compartmentalized room for more play.
And then so like throughout that process, if you don't necessarily need to like quantify it in hard terms, but what's the balance like between like planning out these large scale paintings versus elements of spontaneity that come into the kind of creative process that you go through?
Can you say it again? I'm sorry, man. Sorry.
What's the kind of balance like between like planning things out in the long term with these big projects versus like spontaneity, where you're kind of hit with an idea and kind of work on it more quickly?
Do you mean like in terms of like, do I set aside like a specific like amount, or like what it looks like to set aside a specific amount of time for play, like that kind of thing? Well, in terms of just large scale projects, I try to look at them no differently as like small paintings, because I feel like the pressure of like they have their kind of like own unique amount of pressure, and I try not to look at it like that. I try to, you know, look at a large painting and just treat it like a small study that I'm going to do very quickly and kind of get it out. And I think within that, like, you're able to get little moments of discovery, because you're either like moving fast, because with a study the point is to kind of move a little quicker and to get through it. And I try to take that attitude towards these larger ones, and then vice versa. You know, I think elements of larger work, bringing them down and kind of honing in and being like very intentional about the way I paint small things. So I mean, there's like a flow between the two. And then in terms of like what it looks like on a daily basis, I would say it's like most of the weekdays are like where I'm focusing on things that I actually have a trajectory on. And then like Saturdays is like landscapes day. And then like Sundays is like play around with different things kind of day. Yeah.
Yeah. So building in like that time to just kind of experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So to start getting into these in particular a little bit more, I'm really curious about the titles here. We've got terrestrial and celestial, and landscapes and just land parties really strike me as a kind of like transformative event. You've got like the garage space, the living room, these really like mundane areas that are turned into these spaces of kind of like frivolity and joy, experimenting with different like kind of social organization that would normally be in these physical places. So I'm wondering how you came to those titles, like what brings you to a celestial and terrestrial, and is my thinking anywhere in your realm with that kind of element of transformation?
Yeah, so definitely the titles are like supposed to denote like the evolution of like the infrastructure, right? So starting from like being ground locked to then moving towards Wi-Fi, which is like in the sky, you know, in the heavens. It's like this like signal that's up in the air. But the titles themselves, they came from, there's this meme account that I follow, and it's like Mage Frog, or like, so they're like wizard like memes. Like there's just like stuff about like wizards and like land, you know. But the guy that makes the memes, which is really cool, he's actually a music producer, and he just started making the memes as a way of like spreading his music, which is like pretty cool. And two of the songs that he made that are my favorites are Celestial and Terrestrial. Yeah, so I took those two from the titles of those songs.
It's great.
Yeah.
And
It's not exciting as like.
no, I think that's a great peek into your mind. I think that's wonderful. And the idea of like Wi-Fi being like this celestial kind of intangible thing is so interesting.
Yeah, with
especially with the like your works like focus on the kind of materiality of the internet. Like there's a kind of
Right. Yeah, we were definitely like going for the infrastructure and that the physical part of it for sure.
Could you just speak to each of these in a bit more detail, like individually, kind of walk us through what's going on in each of them and what made them such interesting subject matter?
Yeah, definitely. So this one, both of them, so this image came from Reddit, and it's the subreddit, I think, is TV Too High. And then this one was just, I think, it wasn't on Reddit, but it was another, obviously a page on the internet, and they were just archiving a lot of the different LAN parties. And there was a couple, like, I remember when I started painting this one and posting process photos, I would get comments of like, hey, that guy that's like duct taped to the ceiling is not in there. And you guys might be familiar with that image. There's a very popular LAN party image, and I think it's the same party. It's just like further into the night as like the chaos got higher. But somebody ended up on the ceiling right there, and they were duct taped like to the ceiling, and they're just kind of hanging down. And I think they're just taking like a massive bong rip or something. Like there's like, but this one had kind of a bit more, like it was less theatrical in that way and less kind of staged, and so I really liked it. And I think they're playing Rainbow Six, if I'm not mistaken. Melissa, I think we confirmed, right? It was Rainbow Six? The other one, yeah. I think they both. Yeah, I'm not. I think this one might be also. I'm not 100% sure. One of the things that I liked about the image, or both of the images, is that the screens were just so overexposed and blown out that you really couldn't tell what was on them unless you're like an elite gamer that knows, like, you know. And so yeah, this one is basically, you know, in probably like the early 2000s. We've got like the Sobe shirt, you know, which you guys might remember, Sobe, and you know, this huge TV monitor. And yeah, so they're in the garage, and it depicts just the average LAN party that was just taking place in the garage. You have all the junk food, all of the necessary paraphernalia, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely love the like kind of inscrutability of the monitors. Where this one in particular, in the bottom left, right behind you, it almost looks kind of Minecrafty, but that would be out of time for this particular image. And then over here with like all the blue, I like think a little bit of Halo, but like who knows? And it's also looks like it's on a Mac monitor. Like
yeah, that's definitely an Apple monitor. Yeah, which I mean, just the setup is just so
There's this kind of beautiful like chaos to it, and the blown out screen is so like provocative and just makes you want to like look and figure out like what is going on.
Yeah, I think that there's like the inaccuracy, or it kind of lends itself to the same, you know, you kind of get stuck in it almost in the same way that they are. You kind of get drawn to it. You know, there's like a different sort of mystery to it, but it's, I think, similar.
Yeah, so these images definitely have like a real sense of like nostalgia to them too. Like this is a kind of bygone era people aren't, like, at least under most circumstances right now, hooking their computers to one another directly with like
Right.
cables anymore. So like, how do you see this in terms of like where we are now technologically? Like, why paint something like a LAN party in the 2020s?
Well, I think when I was painting memes, one of the things that I was trying to do was like keep up with this kind of barrage of like images that come out all the time. And I think maybe one of the things that I found out was that it's an interesting challenge for, you know, as a painter to try to do it like a daily image to kind of keep up. But I feel like one of the things that oil painting is really good at, or painting in general, is like old news, you know? And it's really good at like taking things from the past and recontextualizing it, you know, even just filtering it through the medium itself. Kind of what we talked about before is just kind of like, even in that way, it's sort of like an actual elevation. It takes something that's kind of like forgotten and it gives it a place. And it's like, you know, this was an important period of time, and in tracking the history of it, I think it was important to drop a pin on that moment in time as well.
Gamers are finally getting the history.
Exactly, man. Yeah, rise up. Gamers, rise up, man.
I love that.
I like that snort. That was good.
Yeah. So then, moving from the kind of like social networking that's going on in this image, I wonder if you could speak a bit more to the matter of infrastructure that's come up a bit in our conversation, with the like more literal material representation of networks, with this sculpture of the Linksys router back here, which, depending on your experience, may be a very familiar looking device to you. But yeah, what's the story behind
This guy.
So this sculpture is called the Internet, and it is sort of like in between these two, you know, to some degree. And yeah, it's the old Linksys router, and I kind of modeled it after Michelangelo's Pietà, where it's like Mary holding Jesus, and it's kind of like cradled, and he's kind of got like his little wire, and he's holding what is an old. That's like the older internet than that. That's like the LAN. It's like a wave LAN card, and you would plug that in, and that was kind of effectively the internet. And so it's kind of like the newer thing, sort of embracing the old thing as it's evolving, but then it's on, right? It's functioning, but it's disconnected from the wall. And so it's sort of implying the past, present, and future of connectivity, you know, where like in like later, you know, it could even be untethered from a physical power input.
Just out of my own curiosity, is this a model of router that had like antennas? Like, did you think about antennas and wirelessness with this? Just thinking about.
I remember there was a model that did have antennas, right?
Yeah.
Of that Linksys with little ears. Yeah, that one didn't have it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, just a little bit of curiosity.
I think it would have looked cool if it did, because it would have been like little ears.
No, and I love that you refer to it as he, because it does feel kind of like a little character.
Like a little dude, yeah.
You and I, before folks showed up, were talking about Johnny Five.
Yeah, from Short Circuit, yeah.
Flat-headed shape, and how it.
Almost ET-like too.
Yeah, like a little glowing guy. Okay. So.
And then, did you want me to talk about that? Like,
Oh yeah. Why don't you?
yeah. So that one was from TV Too High, and then it was just basically like it's very very similar. But I think the interesting thing about this one is that he looks like he's completely isolated, but he's got the headset on, and his whole network is within the headphones. And I think that was kind of the major sort of shift that I wanted to document with that, was just how the network changed.
Yeah, so we've got like the physical network here, and the kind of like what seems socially disconnected on the face of it,
yes,
but
exactly.
disconnected through the headphones, through the device.
Exactly, and it's also entirely possible that he's got a larger community of people, access to more,
Yeah, you can be playing with people from all across the country or the world, depending on what you're doing, and not limited to your neighborhood or your class.
Yeah, and I think maybe one of the things I was thinking about was, which carries more weight? Is it like the in-person, or is it just the kind of access to to all the people, you know.
So, returning to the kind of idea of nostalgia that we touched on a little bit earlier with these images, I'm also curious to hear your thoughts about various like social anxieties about technology. So we've got this like really positive kind of like warm feeling of the past with these, but they're also fitting into now a cultural moment that we're in where we have like the rapid development and change of artificial intelligence technologies. There's always some next big development that is causing various kinds of fear, whether it has to do with labor markets, whether it has to do with the production of art itself with artificial intelligence. There's just always some development that's causing like social concern, and video games historically have been one of those, right? So, how do you think of these in regard to like narratives that are anxious about technology and society, and potentially as like isolating people and so forth?
I feel like my personal, I don't, you know, I'm not the right person to ask because I feel very optimistic about this stuff. Like, I'm like, dude, I want to be friends with like all the robots, and like, I'm like, you know, like I have ChatGPT, and like, you know, I'm like, hey man, like, I just, you know, like whenever I put in a prompt, like I'm like, hey, I just want to say thanks for, you know, and because if you guys gain sentience, like, you know, spare me, it'll be, like, I'm totally down with the cause. It's all cool, you know. So no, but I feel very optimistic about the future of technology. I mean, I don't know. I think everything just, for me, everything is just sort of like input to adapt to in the work to some degree.
Yeah, and I feel like the like idea around the time that is being depicted here in a lot of like sensational like pop news conversations would be like gamers are isolating themselves and not going outside. They're hanging out in their garage. And this is looking back with like a fondness for this moment in history that's very legitimizing in the kind of form that you're presenting it in. So I just find that especially interesting. Okay. So then also, could you speak a bit more to just how, in the scope of your work with these or with other work that you have been doing or are doing now, about how technology functions both as a kind of bringing together of people and also potentially as a force that's isolating? I find your optimistic perspectives very refreshing on AI and whatnot. So, like, if you could speak more to that, as well as just to like the idea of technology as being both like a community building force and as a potentially isolating force.
Well, you know, like my perspective is going to be like painted by my experiences. So what got me into one of the shifts into painting gamers was the COVID lockdowns. I'm not much of a gamer myself. My core friend group are like very big gamers. And when the lockdowns happened, there was a period of time where we hadn't hung out in a while, and I was just like, man, like I miss my friends. And then I got in touch with my buddies, and he's like, nah, dude, we're like in Discord every day. What are you talking about? Like we're hanging out all the time. And so, you know, they were in this place where like, you know, they didn't skip a beat, you know, and of course they missed like the physical getting together, but they at least had this sort of like supplement within Discord. And I think that's like one of the things that really painted my perspective on it was just seeing, you know, my friends, and then just kind of having my initial opinions about gaming as, you know, just kind of being a waste of time, you know, and then just kind of seeing how much fulfillment they got out of it, and that like I think really shifted my perspective. Yeah. I can definitely see, you know, the arguments for like the touching grass and all that good stuff, you know. I'm a part of me though feels like if you weren't going to be touching grass, like you weren't going to be doing that regardless. Like I don't think like there was somebody who like I don't think there's somebody who's going to be like free soloing like a mountain, you know. But then like they discovered gaming, and now they're, you know what I mean. I think if anything, there was like a temperament already, you know, and then this just suits that temperament. Yeah. Like gaming.
Do you see like your work as kind of like spotlighting that temperament that's usually like kind of aligned?
I think so, because that's sort of my temperament, except I don't game, I just paint, you know, like I don't go anywhere, like I just, you know, just doing my thing at home. So it's like the only difference is like, you know, you could maybe see that like, oh, well, I mean, you know, oil painting is like better because it's producing something, you know, but I mean, I feel like that's kind of like, you know, that feels like a very capital way of like looking at it, like, oh, well, he's alone, but he's producing, so it's like, you know, I mean, and they're, you know, they're forming a strong social network, you know, and they're entrenching themselves in like in these narratives that are important to them, and they're making real friend groups along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting observation, because like both like creative work, like making art, and also games, like have this weird kind of blurry line between things that are like laborious. Like you have these tasks, you're kind of pushing yourself to meet certain goals, but there's also a kind of fulfillment that doesn't necessarily need to be tied to just like capitalism.
Yeah, or production, or like, yeah, you know, they're just enjoying, you know. Like there's like sometimes I will I'll like play some games. Like there's like one of the games that we've played before, like my buddies and I, is like Red Dead Redemption, and I remember like there's times where like we'll be playing and they'll be off doing a mission, and I'll just be writing and like looking at like the landscape itself, and like there's like one time like I stopped and I was like, dude, this is cool, and like I took my like a little canvas out and like I just painted like the TV landscape, you know, like yeah, and it was just like a beautiful little moment, you know what I mean? It's almost like you know, like you're at the park, and obviously, like, you know, you can get cynical about that, and but I just felt like, man, like it's a feat in itself. I mean, those people that programmed this thing and made it like this beautiful experience, and it just looked like a landscape. I was like, oh, I'm gonna paint that thing.
Yeah, and I love the because a lot of your work kind of plays with these layers of mediation, and that's a really good example of it. Like we have like the idea of the real landscape that is being designed, and then it's being presented to you through the game and the screen, and then you're rendering it yet again as a painting or a sketch,
right?
Putting yet another kind of spin on this concept.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's really beautiful. Okay, well, I think that is everything that I've got to cover today. So if we want to open things up to Q&A, that sounds good. So does anybody have any questions?
A comment that this image reminds me of the tradition of paintings of the artist studio.
Oh, that's cool.
Canvases, that's the screens.
That's cool. I love that. Space.
Kind of building off of that, coming in here and looking at the paintings, and then hearing you talk about it, the way that your conversation, kind of set up, some of the ideas behind it. I keep thinking about like a lot of this culture of gaming, has been, very well documented on the internet, right? In terms of photographs, and mainly photographs, right? And when I think about also like the current kind of state with like post-internet art, where it's about the perspective we have now on the world based on technology. And it's kind of an observation into a question, but you're kind of echoing the tradition of history painting, where you're creating these paintings based off of these images that document this history of gaming, presenting them as a painting in that tradition, right? The history painting. And I'm wondering, do you see yourself as a kind of documenter or archiver?
Yeah, I would say that's. We were just talking about that in the lunch thing. That yeah, it's I don't see my role as like main character guy. It's like support. You know what I mean? And just kind of being a fly on the wall and highlighting like really cool things that other people are doing. And that's kind of what I've always seen the role of painting as, and my role as a painter for sure.
So I came in here a couple weeks ago and actually started looking at these. Before I read the little plaques that were next to them, admittedly, I have a very negative view of gamers, and I just think of all my ex ignore me. So before I read the little plaques, I was like, oh, they're making a social commentary about like how they don't go outside and how they just sit here. So I'm interested to hear if you get reactions from people where they either misinterpret it. Do you ever feel like your art can be misinterpreted, or you just say look at it however you want, whatever you get out of it.
Yeah, and I lean more towards that. I mean, I think the nature of my work is to ask questions and not make statements. I think that's kind of my approach. Yeah.
Another comment.
Yeah.
I'm a professor of Jewish studies, so I can't help but notice that in the very middle of this image, Kippah or yarmulke, right? Or am I misreading that?
Oh, this guy.
Yeah.
That's the headphones, the little headphones. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a little. It's the strap over the head. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so,
Maybe I just didn't paint it as good.
You painted it so good that it has many
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I see you doing these paintings of like history. I'm curious about what you think you're going to do next, and if it would be related to a more contemporary things going on right now. If you're going to paint maybe like virtual reality or AR, something that's more recent, or are you going to stay more in a documenting the past?
That's a really great question, and we were talking about that too. So the next project that I'm working on now, it's still in the planning stage, but I've got an idea. It would sort of be a portraiture project. But the central idea is I've contacted different streamers, either gaming streamers or people that are doing just any different number of things. There's somebody that I've got in my hometown, and I think he does like men's mental health sort of content, but he streams. And so I've reached out to a couple of people, and I've got a couple yeses already. So we're going to be, I think, hopefully getting that started next month. And what the project is going to be is while they're doing their actual stream, typically you see, the front of their face, and then, kind of the room in the back a little bit. I'm thinking kind of like Kai Cenat, Aiden Ross kind of like a template. So what I've done is like reach out to these people, and then I'm going to like be in the back of where they are, just actually like painting a portrait of the back of their head, and then the setup, which is a perspective that really nobody sees. And I think it's one of those kind of things that it would be really interesting to do as a painter. And so the idea is to just kind of start as locally as I can with friends, people I know, and then work my way up to like Kai Cenat, Aiden Ross, and try to get in that space. But basically, working on a portraiture project where it's just the back of their heads and this kind of perspective that people don't see. And the idea would be kind of for me to just sort of be like this unaddressed kind of figure in the thing. And it kind of, I think, reinforces that idea that like I've not got main character energy, and neither does painting, or doesn't have to necessarily. It can be like a support and kind of a secondary thing. So that's kind of like the next thing.
I think you do have main character energy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. So hopefully, be hopefully like seeing those next month, and then keep your fingers crossed, and see where it takes us. But I think that was like doing some. It was also important for me to start doing something from life, because I've been painting from photographs, painting memes, painting screenshots, and then I started shifting to doing a lot of landscapes, going to the park just by my house and painting the river, or visiting more spots. And one of the things I think that's maybe been a hole is just painting people from life. And there's opportunities like that in town, but like figure drawing workshops and stuff like that, but I don't take advantage of them as much as I'd like, and probably because there's that kind of like conceptual element that, that I need, I think, to get really excited about a project. And I think this, like the streamer project, kind of bridges all of those gaps for me pretty effectively.
I think what you're doing is super unique.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's very kind.
I'm excited to see you paint Kai Cenat.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Who, do you have a favorite streamer?
I don't really watch much streaming anymore.
Yeah. Did you ever, like, at one point?
Yeah, I used to watch like Overwatch and Valorant.
Okay, cool.
Sleepy.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll get him in the thing too. All right. You guys got to put in a good word for me if you know any streamers too. Everybody.
Do they have to be famous? Or?
No, they don't. No. Like most of the people that I'm getting, they've just been kind enough to like be willing to let me into their space when they're streaming. Yeah, the fame thing is not a component. It's more so just their willingness to like not address me in stream, basically, and to just kind of let like this narrative build of like who the hell's that guy in the background, like painting all these streamers. Yeah, love it.
I found it so interesting when you said painting is good at old news, and to me it made me think about the slowness of
Yeah.
painting
Mhm.
versus the rapidity of internet memes, where you could like throw together a meme almost instantly, send it out almost instantly. There's the slowness in creating an oil painting. I mean, one could do it fast, but I get the sense from yours that there's a slowness.
Yes.
Right? And then there's a slowness in kind of disseminating it in a way. Traditionally,
Yeah.
right? You know, one single oil painting, you have to travel to a particular place
Yeah.
to see it. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think about that? How does slowness come into your work?
I had a show a couple years ago, and it was called "Painting is Just Slow Memes," and that was like, you know, very much on the nose with what you're talking about, you know. And I think there's a part of it was sort of like embracing kind of like the beauty of what oil painting can do, you know, and it can kind of look to the past and contextualize things. And then there's, I think, also the sort of relative frustration with it, you know, and that it takes long, and you know, and that you have to, you know, like if you want to have a show or something, there's kind of like all those things where you know, like it takes a certain amount of time to build up work, and you know, memes can happen like right away, and they can get out to people, whereas paintings like take such a long time. So I think more than anything, I've been trying to bridge the gap between those two. Medium speed.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really love your work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And it brings back a lot of memories. I'm grateful that I've never been duct taped to the ceiling. I was curious if you've thought about, like, or looked at, if any of your work has looked at gamers playing, like, portable devices in, like, public spaces, you know, like, not in, like, dedicated game spaces.
I had this one painting that I did, and the guy had his entire PC set up at a McDonald's. Yeah, it was just you saw that one. It's like the whole. He had like the tower. He had the monitor, the keyboard, the whole thing, and it was just like at a McDonald's. And I remember seeing that too in California one time, and I guess it was just maybe, and it was, you know, it was when I was at Art Center. I saw that, and I don't know what the you know, it might have just been like the bandwidth speed at like a McDonald's is like epic or something, you know. Like, so I'm not sure what was behind, you know, taking an entire setup like that, but I've definitely like seen it and addressed it, and I think it's really cool. But in terms of like the small personal devices, I haven't.
Yeah, please.
I'm curious about it also, like, the increasing film mode or screenshot mode. You know, I was thinking about this when you're right? And I was curious about thoughts on how games photo mode where they are creating these incredible landscapes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, it gives more opportunity for people to appreciate the artistry of like what's been done within that world, you know, which I think is really cool because, you know, there's what was he, like even in Red Dead, like you have a camera. Like they give you a little camera and you can go actually take photos of like wildlife and stuff. And I just like, that's like one of like the things that I will do is like, I'm gonna go find this like, you know, like red sable somewhere, and, you know, or I'm gonna go find the golden like bear and take a photograph of it. So, you know, I think there's like and then there's like the actual screenshot mode where you can take the thing of the whole screen. But I think, you know, more than anything, it's really cool that it does offer a good way to appreciate more of what's going on in there. And I think that's probably just, you know, I guess on the cynical side, it's like that's the end goal, is to try to keep you in game as much as possible.
I'm not sure if you already said something about it. I have a little bit of difficulty because English is not my first language and I'm missing some parts. I'm wondering what kind of responses or resonances or words or whatever you get from the gamers that see themselves in see your work. I'm very far away from this reality in a way. Personally, when I saw it, it was a big, wow, what is this? I don't see this regularly, and it was pretty much the same time I saw the center that the Syracuse University opened now. I mean, to me it was super new. And it was the same kind of reaction, like, wow, this is something really important. That from my point of view, I have been kind of used to get the impression that the society sees this gaming as a side world, underground, or something similar. So for my place, I'm not sure, I don't know much about how many other artists are taking time and space to show us a work in this reality. So do you get from them responses, reactions?
Yeah.
What they tell about seeing this reality reflected in this way?
I think the overwhelming response from the gamers themselves has been very positive. It's been overwhelmingly positive, and then it's kind of the opposite for like staunch academic painters. You know, I kind of get the opposite of like, you know, it's like not a worthy subject matter kind of thing.
So it's like a reaction of this is very important for us that you're doing this.
I think a part of it, it's not really the first thing I consider, but I do see it again as a way of checking the social temperature of our, you know, or a cultural temperature of our society, or seeing what, you know, where people are at with their opinions on things. So it isn't the positive or negative. That itself doesn't really sway me, but just more so that there is an opinion about it. I think that to me is like enough. Thank you. I appreciate the question.
This is kind of a comment, but about like being worthy subject matter and how academic types are like, oh, why would you paint gamers, whatever. I think as someone who I admitted that I have a negative gamers, you can still not like the subject matter, but appreciate the art, I think.
Right.
And so I think it kind of separates that thing, like, can you appreciate art if you don't agree with what the art
Oh,
is
that's
saying?
cool. Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, as a comment, I just think that it's kind of like art can be, it can give you negative emotions, it can give you positive, you can agree, you can disagree, but I don't think it's like, do I like or not like? I
Right.
think that's really weird, like, kind of line to cross.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of like unnuanced kind of answer is sort of par for the course with social media, though. You know, when I'm having conversations like this, you're able to get all the nuance and all of that, but on social media, it's like, you know, 3 words or, you know, whatever. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Cringe. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
This is a lot of it foreign because I'm not a gamer, of course, and much older than that. I'm even trying to figure out if I have seen that or not, but that's not the point. The point is I just came back from London, and the National Gallery has a lot of work about the size that you have in the wall. And of course the theme is different, but I'm really impressed by your use of light.
Thank you.
Which is really revealing of how I think you want us to look, or where you want us to look. So can you tell us a little bit about how you play with the light when you, or is it on purpose, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I try to stick pretty closely to the reference photos, and so when I'm picking out reference, I think I've already kind of made the major decisions about what I like, you know, in terms of lighting quality. But one of the main things for sure is putting a lot of emphasis on the kind of colors and the exposure of the screens. I think that's one of my favorite things to paint for sure, has just been LEDs and screens. And, you know, like on this painting, I might be in the way of it. I'll get up for a second, but like there's like this guy, and there's like this little LED, and like the glow on his leg is just like my favorite thing in the world. So there's just, you know, there's like little things like that that are just kind of nerdy, and you'll see them in like old master paintings, the way that they play with light. But I think modernizing them with like LEDs and blue and all of that stuff is kind of where I've just kind of stumbled upon, which has been really cool. Thank you.
I have a question kind of in relation to size as well. Screens seem to be a pretty prominent feature, right? When we're talking about gaming, and most of the paintings here have screens as kind of a central focus and people's attention on and in screens. Gallery spaces more and more are including screens, including phones. Video game exhibits often have like playable snippets, right? We can actually sit in front of a screen. Just curious about your choice to stick with physical media and paint as a medium, and if you have thought about or how you might approach thinking about using screens, right? When your art seems to focus so much on screens.
Yeah, that's a good question, dude. I've not really considered anything in terms of like maybe sculpture, things like that where I'll use like physical objects. But in terms of like, using them outside of painting, I've not really given it a whole lot of thought, and I'm not sure why, but it's a really good question for me to think about. I like that, yeah. But no, I mean, I think maybe for me, it's more so just spending the time documenting our preoccupation with them, And I think maybe outside of that, I might not have anything meaningful to contribute to like an actual screen environment, Not main character energy.
Any more questions? Okay, we will have time during the reception to chat more. So
Yeah.
I think we'll wrap up here.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mauro.
Of course, thank you.
Sam.
And thank you guys so much.
Thank you all.
Sharing your work. You all have been an excellent, engaged audience.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So thank you all for being here. Mauro's work is up here as part of the Art Wall project through the end of the semester. So you have a couple more months to enjoy it. Please do tell friends to come visit. We have a couple events coming up that you may be also interested in. Next Thursday, March 6th at 5:30, we'll be here for an environmental storytelling event that will focus on one of our other exhibitions, work by Joyri Minaya, that will feature a conversation with Cristina Pardo-Corto, who's right here, curated the exhibition, and Carrie Peñate from Art and Music Histories will be talking about landscape, environment, and soundscape relative to the work of Minaya. We'll have another Joyri Minaya event on March 18th at 4:30. Christina will be back again in conversation with Joyri Minaya herself, so another artist talk. And then March 29th, Saturday from 12 to 4, we have our Community Day. And that is an event open to all, including children, all ages welcome. We will have art making. We're going to have an animation workshop in the galleries and working on something a little bit experimental. I won't say too much about it yet, but it should be fun in the galleries. So we would love to see you at Community Day as well. So you can find more information on our website, museum.syr.edu. And I think that's it. Thank you, everybody.
So please join us for snacks.
Hey, that was awesome.
One of your magazines. Perfect.
Yeah?
Beautiful.
Did we do good on time, all that stuff?
Perfectly
Okay.
on time. Perfect.
Thank you.
It was great.
Dude, awesome questions, man. Those are great questions.
Yeah, no, that was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, it was. I feel all excited when I have conversations like that after, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Let me turn my camera off.
Oh my God.
Got the footage. Nice.